Well, he's popped in the office, and we thought, well, what the heck? We'll just put him on the air.
Absolutely.
Rockingham County Sheriff Sam Page is here, and we're glad to have him here. And a lot was going on last month. You didn't have a chance to stop by last month, so we're going to kind of catch up on what's been going on. But hopefully you're doing okay. You've been busy lately. A lot of things going on lately. Between weather and other things going on. We're going to talk about a lot of things with what's going on with the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office in this segment. If you got a question or something, you can always contact the Sheriff's Office at 336-634-3232, but hopefully
follow us at rockinghamsheriff.com.
That's right, you do have a website. That's something that went into place after I was long gone, and I got to admit though, news releases, a lot of information about gun permits and all that. It's a really informative site.
Mark kind of started it all and kind of mentored to a lot of the PIOs, public information officers, that have followed since Mark.
Now you today were honored for 30 years of service with Rockingham County.
Absolutely.
Over 30.
Our county manager and their staff and the commissioners basically recognize several employees, some of our retirees. You know, Billy King retired, and one of our retirees,
right.
And also Darrell Ferguson. And they were recognized along with some other retirees, and they recognized employees that had like 15, 20, and of course, all get recognized for 30 years service.
And you know what the crazy thing about it is that the people, all of the people that you just mentioned, Darrell Ferguson, Billy King, all of these people are people that I basically started out with, and now they're retiring. That makes me feel a lot older.
Well, I didn't mean to come in to make you feel bad tonight.
Well, I know, but you did. I mean, you've already ruined my day, so.
Mark, think about all the good things you did while you was at the sheriff's office.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of good, and a lot of fun, and a lot of good people I worked with over the years. The DARE program, public relations, PIO, a lot of things. But not only were you honored today, but Sergeant Kevin Southard, who keeps us updated on the things going on in the Sheriff's Office. He's the official spokesman for the Sheriff's Office, 20 years. So congratulations to you and to
Give a shout out to Kevin
for all this time. Got a lot of things to talk about. One of the things I really wanted to talk to you about, I know that you, as soon as this tornado, and I knew something was up on that Sunday, when I heard the wind blowing, and then I heard what sounded like hail hitting, and then these really high gusty winds, and then I can hear sirens, and I knew something was going on. And then the next thing I know, I'm flipping through Fox 8, Channel 2, Channel 12 are all broadcasting live. Our transmitter was knocked off the air because of when the tornado crossed over.
It was pretty close.
It was very close, and so we were knocked off the air. But I saw you, I believe it was on Channel 2.
Down on Grooms Road.
Talking to them down on Grooms Road. I am absolutely amazed that no one was killed in this tornado. It was just amazing. It left Guilford County as an EF2 tornado, came into Rockingham Counny as an EF1 tornado, and kept going across the line into Virginia as an EF1. I mean, it traveled and the width of it, but no one, people were injured, but no one died.
I don't know if you had time to travel, but I know Star News has covered some of the areas that were affected. But you know, Ruffin saw a lot of damage. As I know, when the Methodist Church lost a steeple, some roof damage. A lot of buildings were damaged, trees down. Near the railroad, and then of course you get into the Brooks Road area. If you go up to the event center, was totally flattened up there on Dibble Road. I know they did an interview with Gary Barrett, and I understand they're going to rebuild the event center. A gentleman I know that does the maze, Mr. Brown. You know, the barns, several barns were tore up and stuff like that. But it was a lot of damage, and it went quick.
Very quick.
Very quick. But we're very blessed that no one was seriously injured.
But the Sheriff's Office, along with, and I want to say tip of the hat to all of the emergency
all
services
the first responders were great.
First responders, Yanceyville, Ruffin,
everywhere, all over.
Monroeton, people were everywhere, all over the place. And so great, fantastic job. Deputies out there trying to watch out. I saw people. I was really in a panic at times because I saw people actually stepping over power lines, and I was panicky.
That was a scary thing because, you know, when I was out there, especially when it got dark, you're looking overhead and you're looking down also, because those lines, some lines can be energized. And according to the Duke Energy personnel, you can get electrocuted real easy getting close to those lines.
Yeah.
So the best thing is all lines are hot, stay away from them. But thank goodness, they had a mobile home that got blown off its foundation and was flipped out and hit a car in the road, and some people were injured in their car. I haven't heard any updates there. I do want to give credit also not only to all of our first responders and our 911 telecommunicators, but everybody responded, but also to the God's Picture crew. We also had the Baptist Men's Disaster Relief Group came out, and also I actually got to meet with the Samaritan's Purse representatives that were out there on Saturday. So we had several of these response groups, and it was just tremendous. And American Red Cross, I saw those representatives out there too. But a lot of fine people doing a lot of work, and volunteers all over.
People came out because they knew that this was going to be something. So to everybody,
thank you.
Thank you for what you did, and that was great. We were lucky to get our transmitter back on the next day.
It was the next day.
But it was thousands of people without power. It was just chaotic.
And Duke Energy was working really hard. As a matter of fact, they got the power. It was like 2,300 people without power in Rockingham County. And they had it reduced pretty quick over like a couple days. Had it reduced pretty quick and got that power back on. And we appreciate all their, because it's it's dangerous when you're out in the rain and you're dealing with power.
It's really dangerous.
Very dangerous.
So you have to be careful. One thing I know that you don't like to talk about, but I'm going to ask you about it anyway. There was a deputy-involved shooting that happened, and
on Monday last week.
1 week ago, a little over a week ago. And I know that this is currently under investigation by the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, the shooting part. I know there's been some criminal charges lodged against the individual who was treated and then released into custody of the sheriff's office.
That's correct.
Then he went to jail. His wife has since been charged with things as well. What can you tell us about it?
Basically is when the deputy got to the call, was going to, how many times did we get the 911 hang-ups? He was responding to a 911 hang-up.
Right.
And when he got there and he made contact with the wife who was with the children, turned out to be her husband, just within a few seconds, presented a firearm and pointed at my deputy, and my deputy returned fire and stopped him from hurting anybody else or the deputy.
Yeah.
And I'm glad my deputy is okay. I worry about our officers and our first responders. I mean, it's when you're sheriff, you worry about your deputies because they're going in harm's way every day they do their jobs, whether it's directing traffic or answering suspicious calls or even routine calls. There's no routine call, as you know.
Yeah, right.
And again, I'm just glad that my deputy is okay. Again, I did notify the State Bureau of Investigation as part of a routine to handle the investigation. The wife was charged a day or so later for some child abuse charges. And contributing charges to delinquency of a minor, but
can you discuss any of that at all?
Not really. They do have a court date, but again, the original person arrested was a Scott Daniels who lived up on Nail Road, and again, like I said,
and I think Rebecca Daniels, the wife, was charged too.
But at this time, the case is pending and finishing an investigation with the SBI, and they'll have a court date coming up.
How does this affect a department when you have, in the last year, this is the second shooting I think that the department's been involved in. When you have a situation like this, not only does it affect the deputies that are directly involved, but how does it affect the department as a whole?
Well, every time you go out and do your job, I mean, you're representing the agency, and you're when I go out, I'm the face of the agency, but these
Right.
deputies, men and women that go out and do their jobs every day they go out and they put their lives on the line. They do this public service because they're there to help people. They're there to help the citizens, and there are dangers and threats out there. We got a lot of great people in Rockingham County, but we got a minority, a small group of people that create problems and that are dangerous. And again, like I said, on this particular case, the deputy was doing his job, and this is what can happen. You can run up on someone that may point a gun at you, but we are going to protect ourselves. We're going to protect others, and the deputy did his job, and I'm very proud of the deputy. But again, you worry about your deputies every day, and when you think about it, and you look about you reflect when things like this happen. Is what did you do? You look at your training,
Right.
you look at your supervision, you look at a lot of things. But I think everybody did their job as they're supposed to do. And again, my deputy's here today.
Is there
I'm
ever,
grateful.
is there, do you think that when it comes to these investigations, especially when it comes to body cameras and things like that, that basically backs up things that
It helps. It helps. Even with a body camera, you're going to get some sound, and you're going to get a kind of a snapshot of the situation.
And let me stop you here for just a moment. And the reason I want to stop you is I don't know if you saw where Danville had a police-involved shooting.
I watched
and the chief released the footage.
Well,
I know North Carolina's
the
laws
law's
are
different,
different
yes.
here in North Carolina because
Has to be with a court
the
order.
department head can't just do it, and it has to be through court
That's
order.
correct, that's correct.
But in Virginia, they still have the capability to do that on their own, and they
Yeah.
did.
I watched
so
the
it
video.
gives you a perspective of how things were at the scene.
It does help, from a chief's or sheriff's perspective. It does help us to understand what happened, and also at appropriate time when it can be shown, it also lets the public know what happened. Our goal is to instill trust in the law enforcement representatives out there to serve in the community, and again, it does help. When you were working, and in my early years, we didn't have cameras and stuff like this.
Right,
But
right.
later it went to cameras on the patrol cars.
Right.
But I think it has been helpful. I do support the cameras because it protects the public and protects our deputies and our police officers. So it's good. It's a good thing.
Let's talk about something. I know that you were really excited about this. Dr. Rodney Shotwell, the superintendent of
right.
schools here in
School safety
Rockingham
initiatives.
County. You were both really excited about the possibility of having armed volunteers in the school, especially after what happened at the Stoneman Douglas
Parkland,
High
yeah,
School
yeah.
in Parkland, Florida.
Yes.
The shootings there. And you had talked about this. This was something that had been talked about before, and actually a law was put into effect that would allow a department head in North Carolina, law enforcement department head,
Chief
to
or
actually
sheriff.
put a program into place. However, you've had to back off that.
Yeah. In 2013, right after Sandy Hook, our legislative body wrote a bill that would apply to chiefs and sheriffs, which would allow for volunteer former law enforcement officers or former military police, prior law enforcement, prior military police only, that could work in a volunteer capacity to help us at our schools, to give us an extra assistance through this volunteer force at our schools. And that was a result of the Sandy Hook situation. They were looking at some type of legislation. The problem was I was working with the Justice Academy trying to get it was a piece that I saw that in the education piece that was required was not clear, was not completed. And as that has moved forward, it's been put on hold. And so as I understand now, through training standards and sheriff standards, until that piece is written in and the legislator approves it, you can't implement the program. So, but it was just one option of trying to use existing resources to cover a need for safety and security at our schools. Of course, the best scenario or best case is to have a full-time resource officer who's trained, school resource officer that's armed at the school protecting our kids, helping our teachers, helping our principals, protecting our children.
And I hate to
And that's where I stand on that.
I hate to be a Debbie Downer, as they say these days, but when it comes down to it, let's be honest. The legislature, to get something through the legislature, unless you have like a special session which costs so much money, then it could be a while before that would even be able, or they would be able to change that around. Am I right on that?
You're talking about on the education piece?
Well, no,
On the volunteer
on the
program?
volunteer program.
Yeah.
So that could take a while.
I can't put a timeline on the legislature. I don't know.
Right. So it could be it could be a year. It could be more than that. And
In the meantime, in our county,
right.
I have 6 elementary schools, and DPI, Department of Public Instruction, provided funding a couple of years ago following Sandy Hook to provide for school resource officers to assist the schools in being able to help support that effort and provide funding for that. But we do have the DPI funding. We also have, the governor's also put in $130 million in his budget to cover funding, part of that to cover funding for school resource officers. There are COPS grants, but with the COPS grants, I'm competing U.S.-wide. Now, we'll try to find those grants to try to
Right.
help support it, but there's no guarantee we're going to get those grants. But I can tell you this, is the two most important things we can do in Rockingham County is to protect our kids and provide a safe school environment for our children and our teachers.
But my question, I think my question would be on that. You know that you can't enact the volunteer program
No,
right now because
exactly.
of that. So you have how many schools that are not, that don't have
Not
a
covered.
school resource officer?
I have to look after, in my job, or my responsibilities for safety and security, 6 elementary schools, 2 high schools, a middle school, and it worked with our charter school. But actually covered by an officer being there full-time, I have 2 elementary school resource officers covering 6 schools. And in this day and
It
time...
can't be everywhere at the
It
same
can't be
time.
everywhere. And you worked as a DARE officer.
Yeah.
My concern is, again, the best option is providing a full-time paid school resource officer who's trained protecting the schools. Being a physical, a psychological deterrent to anybody has intent to do violence on our schools, our children, our teachers, or anybody in that environment. We need to let a person that thinks about doing that, you might want to go somewhere else, because there's an officer there that correlates, there's somebody there in that building
Right.
that you will meet resistance if you try to harm anybody there.
So what happens now? In other words, I know that there's a lot of parents that's watching this show right now that are probably worried on a daily basis because they know that the school resource officer that may be covering those elementary schools certainly can't be everywhere at the same time. So what is the answer?
Well, there's no guarantee on grants, and every year I have to go before the county commissioners
Right.
and explain and tell what my needs are. And I think the most important necessity I have right now is providing safety and security for our kids and our teachers and protecting the schools. I have 4 elementary schools in Rockingham County that are not covered full-time by deputies, school resource officers, and I'll be asking the county commissioners for support on that. I've already indicated to our commissioners, our county manager, that it is my interest to do that. I've talked with the school superintendent, and my goal is to see 4 school resource officers manning those schools starting next school year.
Can the
And the way you can go ahead.
No. I was going to say, can the viewers that are watching right now, certainly, if they have a problem, they call the county commissioners or they call
Right.
the leaders. I mean, can they get involved in this? Can they?
Yes, they can. If you're a parent, a grandparent, or anyone else
Anyone.
who believes in what I'm talking about, contact your commissioners. They have the ability to approve the budgets that we operate within, and if we're appropriated the funding for the positions, we can put them in the schools for the equipment and the vehicles and the personnel.
Could the county commissioners fund those 4 positions?
The county commissioners
full time.
The county commissioners will have to look at what resources they have, what funds they have, and their ability to do that. But the thing is, if you never discuss it and if you never put it on the table, it'll never happen.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, if you support the idea of safer schools, which I do, call your commissioners.
Well, one thing about it, and this is something that I think about, is that people tend to think that these school shootings happen at Columbine. That was when I was with the
Back in
sheriff's
99,
office back in
yeah.
'99.
Yeah.
Columbine happened. And then we've had the shooting in Florida at the Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida.
And Maryland right after that?
Yeah, right after that too. So we tend to think that there are these high school, that these happen in the grades where you would normally think a school resource officer would be anyway. But we got to go back and look. Sandy Hook was an elementary school. And that's what's so scary, because you take someone who is on a mission to do harm, they're looking for anybody.
They're looking for what's called a soft target. And our churches, Kevin Southard, our public information officer, he also is a crime prevention officer. He, out of probably about 450 churches in Rockingham County, he's gone to at least 60 churches to talk about safety and how you can better improve the safety in your church. Whether it be churches, special events, anytime there's a place where there's a big gathering, as a sheriff, I have a concern. Sporting events, I want to make sure that we're covering and we're protecting the people while they're there attending these events. And I've looked at these events since Columbine, and it concerns me, but we can't take another incident. It can happen anywhere at any time in the United States or in North Carolina. And, you know, I've talked to representatives from the governor's office, and I've told them, you know, that I saw the governor down in Florida appropriated funds to provide for funding for resource officers across the state of Florida. And I passed that message on through contacts to the governor's offices. We need to look at that, but in reality, we do need to find a way to fund these resource officers. City of Eden, they need a school resource officer. Typically, we have received funding through grants, but that's not a guarantee.
One thing, but why does this become such a political issue? And what I'm asking you is, I'm not asking you for politics, but what I'm saying is why does every time these things come about that the ball gets to rolling on gun control debates, either for or against, why isn't safety the top on the top rung of the ladder? Why do people want to argue back and forth about?
I can't argue. The only thing I can argue is this: as a sheriff, it is my responsibility to provide the best level of law enforcement protection.
Does that make sense, though?
Yeah, I understand.
You see what I'm saying?
But if people get sidetracked, is what they do.
They get sidetracked, and that's what bothers me. Is because when we're thinking about the safety in our schools, we should be. And I'm speaking on someone who spent 6 years
as a
dare officer, and I'm thinking about. I look back now
and think about it.
And think about then. Dare officers in those days went in the schools without a gun because it was just a part of the program that the officers, whether police officer or deputy sheriff, did not wear a gun. And I, for 6 years, spent in seven schools in Rockingham County. Most of those time, my gun was locked up. And I'm thinking, how times have changed. And instead of the safety aspect of it, we try to turn it into a political hot potato, we should be thinking about safety. That's what we should be
public safety
about.
Is what I know, and that's why I'm approaching this issue. Is when I'm asked, what do we need to do? We need to better protect our schools here in Rockingham County, and it's going to have to be funded. We're going to have to find the monies to do so. You know, we'll look at grants, but there's no guarantees. But I do have the responsibility. I do look after several schools out in the unincorporated areas, and it's my responsibility to make sure that I get that message out.
Right.
And again,
I'm saying if you're going to spend money on furniture, if you're going to spend money on vehicles, if you're going to spend money on that, there's got to be some money that can do that, whether it's coming through, the governor's office, or whether it's a grant money or whatever it is that can come up and match it. The county commissioners can put that. I really believe that that's something we don't need to play with.
You've heard me say this. I think the perfect scenario is the protection provided by the full-time school resource officers, because I believe that teachers want to have a safe environment where they can teach.
Right. Kids
can have a safe environment where they can learn, and we'll be the protectors.
And I've heard a lot. You've heard these too. I know you have. What about arming teachers? What about and some of these things are so far-fetched that it scares me to think about it. And then you talk to some of these teachers, and they're saying, "I don't want to do that." When you have someone who is trained and can do this, to me it's just better. So you're saying to our viewers, call the county commissioners, call your, what about your state leaders, elected leaders, state representatives?
Call your legislative representatives, absolutely, and tell them how you feel. We do need the funding to come through to the DPI, Department of Public Instruction, to help fund these resource officers across the state. Contact your state representatives. Contact your county commissioners, and you know what? You can pick up the phone and also call your congressman, because they also appropriate funds. Mark Meadows had I can't remember the total amount, but they were trying to appropriate funding to trickle down to help with the COPS grants and funding for resource officers through the federal side.
I worry about it. I do. Sometimes when I see these things on TV, I worry about it. I don't have children in school, but I think about these kids and how vulnerable. Nobody ever wakes up and gets dressed and goes to school or go to work and think that's going to be the last day that you'll ever spend. So I worry about that. So good luck on it.
We appreciate everybody's help, but I think it's the most important thing we can do starting this year. It's something we need to do.
Well, call your county commissioners and let them know how you feel about it, and see if we can get the ball rolling on that. We're out of time. It goes by quickly. It certainly
sure
goes
certainly
by.
did,
It
didn't
really
it?
does
Yeah.
go by quickly, because once we get rolling, things start happening. But we'll talk to you. You'll be here next month.
Absolutely.
Rockingham County Sheriff Sam Page comes to the show on the last Tuesday of every month, and we'll be back. We'll talk to you soon.
We appreciate it. Thank
Thanks,
you, Mark.
Sheriff
Thank you.
Sam Page here in the studios in Reidsville today. We got lots more coming up. We'll be back in just a minute.